Hello and welcome. If you're new to my channel, I'm Jeanette, and on this channel we learn watercolor, alcohol, ink, and other creative art projects together. So it's that time of year, time to start making some Christmas cards, so let's get started. Hello friends, in today's tutorial we're going to be painting an adorable little snowman that you can use for a Christmas card. Now I'm drawing it freehand. I did find an image for inspiration and then I changed it around to make it my own. And if you can't draw, no worries. At the end of the video I will post a picture of the finished painting. You can pause the video, take a screenshot, print out the image and use it for your inspiration, or you can even trace it if you like. Now I'm painting today on Canson XL watercolor paper. It is not cotton, so it does dry very quickly. So I did have some issues, but of course I worked around them. Once I was finished drawing, I mixed my colors, and the colors that I'm using are Hooker's Green, Deep Magenta, Cobalt Blue, Lemon Yellow, and Persian Blue. So for the background, I'm using the Persian Blue, and I did dilute it in my palette. And you can see I'm using a large brush to do the background so I can get through it very quickly. But these are silver black velvet brushes and they have a beautiful point which allows me to get into all those little corners without any problems. And once I finished the top portion of the sky or the background, I picked up a heavier consistency straight from the palette to darken the corners and the top a little bit. And then I just continued with the same process, filling in the background. I'm also using my Mei Liang watercolor paints. And as always, all the products used will be listed in the description box. Now here I'm going around the pom-pom of the hat. So I wanted to make it look fluffy. So you can see I painted some lines instead of painting around the pom-pom. And later on you'll see why I did that. Now I'm starting to paint the top section of the hat, and for that I'm using the Hooker's Green, and I'm picking up a heavy consistency of the color and I'm going to outline that section of the hat. And then I'll clean my brush and use a clean damp brush to bring that that color towards the center of the hat. Once I've filled in the area, you'll see I pick up a heavier consistency, and this may be the Deep Hooker's Green, and I'm using it to add some shadow. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm using Canson XL watercolor paper, and because it's not 100% cotton, it dries very quickly. So I can see that the heavier consistency is not mixing or blending very well. So I'm going to use a clean damp brush to move that color around to where I want it to be. Now while the hat dries, I'm going to move on to the scarf. And for the scarf, I'm using the Deep Magenta. And again, I'm using a heavy consistency around the outside and then using a clean damp brush to bring that color towards the center of that area. And now while the paint is still wet, I'm using the Deep Violet to add a little bit of shadow where I think there should be some. And I'm going to continue with that same process for this section of the scarf. And you can see that I'm skipping around. I don't want to paint near an area that may still be wet so that my colors don't run from one area into another. So again, I'm dropping in a little bit of that deep violet for shadow. Anywhere I think there should be some shadow, like underneath the snowman's head, onto the scarf, and around the side. And for the nose, I didn't write down these colors, but I used a yellow, and then I used a light orange, and underneath that I used a darker orange. Then I used a clean, damp brush to blend those colors together. Now I'm painting the second section of the hat, and I'm using the Hooker's green for this. And once I filled in the area, again, I used the deep Hooker's green to add some shadow. And then I used a clean, damp brush to blend that together so I had some soft edges. Now for this section of the scarf, I wanted it to be a little bit darker, so I did add some of the deep violet to the deep magenta, just to change it a little bit, just very little of the purple, because that deep violet is a very strong color. And then I used the deep violet to add some shadow. And I'm also trying to add a little bit of texture to the scarf, create some folds. So you'll see that I'm adding the purple to the center of the scarf and around the edges. And then I'll use a clean, damp brush again to blend those colors and get softer edges. Now for the brim of the hat, I wanted to add some stripes. So I'm using the deep magenta to create stripes along the brim, and you can see that I'm angling them in the direction I want to show that it's going. Now I want to add some shadow to the snowman because he looks very flat. So I am using the wet and wet technique. I'm wetting down the area, and then I'm using a very diluted cobalt blue, and I'm adding it along the edges where I think there should be some shadow, like around the scarf and underneath the scarf. And this really brings the snowman to life. And for the face, I'll be doing the same thing. Here I'm wetting it down. And again, because I'm working on the Canson XL paper, it dries very quickly, so you have to work quickly. So I'm going to add the shadow underneath the hat and the nose and around his neck. Now I'm just finishing up the tip of the hat. I painted it with the diluted Hooker's green and then added the deeper shade of the Hooker's green and blended it together. Then I decided to add some yellow stripes to the hat, so I'm just using the lemon yellow to fill in the spaces between the red. And you can see I'm not being too careful, because later on I am going to outline this and it will define everything. And of course you don't have to do that. If you like it like this, then don't outline it. I like the outline because I think it gives it more definition and it makes it pop more. Now I am using a micron pen. This is a 05 nib, and I'm going to add the details to the snowman's face. And you can see I left a little white circle in the center of the eye And if you don't get them perfect, that's okay. You can use a white gel pen or a white Posca pen to straighten them out. And I gave my snowman some eyelashes. And then I'm just going to continue to outline all the elements of the painting. And while you watch me outline it, again, I'll remind you that all the products I'm using are listed in the description box just below the video. And if you have any questions about anything you see me do in this video, please let me know in the comments. I read every comment and I answer all your questions. And consider joining our Facebook group, Vivo Vintage Design Tutorials, where you can post your versions of the paintings and techniques learned in this channel. And now you saw that I painted in the pom-pom using an Artex acrylic paint marker. And you can see why I did those little blue lines around the pom-pom. It just makes it look fluffier. And now I'm using a white gel pen to create the snowflakes. And you can see some are pretty big. And I have all different sizes. I think it makes it more whimsical and cuter. You can use a white Posca pen for this as well. Well, I think this little guy is finished. I think he is absolutely adorable. And removing the tape, of course, is everyone's favorite part. I hope that you have enjoyed this video and that you give it a try. Thank you so very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.